Welcome back to the reading of the Mahabharata, chapter 26, the burning of the house of lac. There was a miner who was a good friend of Vidura. He was sent to the city of Varnavata. He came to Yudhishthira and said, I am a miner sent by Vidura to help you. He repeated the sentences which Vidura had spoken in Mlecha Bhasha to Yudhishthira. This was a passport into the confidence of Yudhishthira, who had to be careful about everything, especially strangers who profess themselves to be friends. Yudhishthira said, What does my uncle command me to do? The miner said, Your uncle has told me everything about this house. I have been sent to build an underground tunnel which connects the palace with the bank of the river Ganga. Yudhishthira's face registered relief. He said, Good. I think it's an excellent idea. It must be begun at once. The miner began to build the tunnel, but it was not an easy task. Purochana was in the house always. It looked as though he was waiting attendance on them, but in reality, he was keeping an eye on them to prevent them from escaping. The Pandavas knew this. They had to get him out of the house. Therefore, they spent most of the time outside the house, wandering in the surrounding forests. They wanted to become familiar with the lie of the land so that they could find their way easily when they would have to escape during some fateful night. They pretended to be interested in hunting. Purochana would be with them. Thus, they succeeded in weaning him away from the house. At last, the task was over. The tunnel had been completed. It was a very big tunnel. The mouth, however, was small. The door to the tunnel was right in the courtyard of the house. It was covered by a costly rug. It was now almost a year since the Pandavas had come to Varnavata. Purochana thought that the time was ripe. He felt that he had gained the confidence of the Pandavas. Miner told Yudhishthira that Purochana had planned to set fire to the house on the 14th day of the dark fortnight, when the world would be enveloped in darkness. Yudhishthira told Bhima, Purochana has decided to burn us in a few days. The time has come when we must arrange our flight. Let us arrange to leave 6 people to sleep here. Purochana, of course, stays here always. We will then set fire to this house called Siva and escape through the tunnel. The next day, Kunti had a feast arranged to feed all the poor in the city. There was a Nishada woman who would come often to the presence of Purochana. Kunti was aware of that. This woman also came to the feast. Kunti was very pleasant to her. She thought that she was now a friend of the queen. She had 5 sons. On the day of the feast, this Nishada woman was made to drink her fill. So were her sons. She and her sons were so drunk that they slept in the palace that night. Purochana was drunk too. So that night there were 7 people sleeping in that house. Late in the night, the Pandavas set about their escape. The preparations were quick and silent. Kunti and 4 of the Pandavas entered the tunnel first. Bhima, with a flaming torch in his hand, danced about all over the place, setting fire to the walls of the apartments, to every corner of the place. He knew where the pots of oil and ghee were placed. He knew where Purochana was sleeping in drunken stupor. He set fire to that place. Bhima then hastened to the trapdoor. The house had already begun to burn. He rushed into the tunnel. He left the door open. He knew that the debris would cover up the door and the part of the tunnel too, and prevent people from discovering that the Pandavas had been able to escape through the tunnel. The entire city woke up from a deep sleep by the noise of the house burning. There were terrible crashing noises when the house fell down. No one could come near and try to rescue the princess, since the moat could not be crossed. They all stood helpless and watched the house as it burned. No one could do anything. They had to stand and watch the beloved Pandavas being burned. It did not require much intelligence for them to guess that Dhritarashtra and his son were responsible for this tragedy. The people of Varnavata cursed the Kauravas and wept for the young princes and their mother, who had been murdered in such a treacherous manner. They stood all night watching the palace of Lak being burned to ashes. Pandavas, in the meantime, were hurrying through the tunnel. Bhima heard the crash of the building falling down. He hurried them along. There was danger of the tunnel closing up because they might not make it out of it. Kunti and her other children were so sleepy and so nervy that they could not walk fast. Bhima took them all up, with his dear mother on his back, the twins on his hips, and the other two in his arms. The great hero walked the entire length of the tunnel. They reached the bank of the river Ganga at long last. From that distance, they could see the sky, red with the flames rising from the burning house. The river flowed placidly. It was comforting to see her flow so serenely. She was unruffled. It seemed as though she was setting an example, as if to say, "Do not let these things trouble you. They will pass." They were now to the south of Varnavata. There they met a man who had been stationed there by the thoughtful Vidura. He said, "Thank God you have come. I saw the house burning and was worried about you. I have been here every night for the last so many nights. We did not know when you would be able to escape from the house of Lak. Vidura has placed here a boat to ferry you across the river. It is in readiness. After you reach the other side of the river, Vidura wants you to proceed southwards. The path will be clear to you because of the stars. You are asked to keep your whereabouts and even your existence a secret for the next few months." It is to be noted that all the people sent by Vidura spoke first the words in Mlecha Bhasha, which Vidura had first used. That was the only way to convince Yudhishthira that they were real friends. The Pandavas, surrounded by spies and enemies on all sides, they could never have made out the difference between a friend and a foe. The boatman came near. He first convinced them that he was a friend. Then he said, "Vidura has paid me enormous money and he asked me to wait here every night with my boat. Someday," said Vidura, "someday the Pandavas will be there with their mother and you will have to ferry them across the Ganga and leave them on safe ground. That day has come. I have the good fortune of guiding the Pandavas. I am indeed fortunate, since God has made me fit to do such a good turn to the best of men." They crossed the river and the Pandavas entered the terrible forest. The night was dark and dreadful. But the princes had to hurry as much as they could. Distance was a dire necessity now. They had to go as far away from Varnavata as they possibly could. They hurried along with quick steps. With that, we come to the end of chapter 26, the burning of the house of Lak. We continue reading the Mahabharata by Kamala Subramaniam here on Storytime with Rajesh. Till then, this is me, Rajesh, signing off. Ciao.